Dude, Mike, thank you. First of all, I know that you have a full every day. You're a daddy and a husband, and you've got things going on. So it means a lot for you to carve out time. And I want to say, so I've been a fan of your podcast for a long time now. So I know more about you than you know about me, but I'm stoked that we've been able to connect through Instagram recently and but you in my mind are you're like such an incredible wealth of knowledge when we think about health and lifestyle, for supporting optimization of health and longevity, right? So there's so many different avenues that I'm like, oh my God, I want to go everywhere with him. But, in preparation for this conversation with you, being that we are in this quarantine situation, COVID-19, and really paying a close attention to your posts as always, but just, really paying attention to what's really moving you right now. What's inspiring you? What are you passionate about? Like what's triggering you? And kind of wanting to start there. I feel like it might be along the lines of diet and how the conversation in this whole COVID situation is not really pointing the masses in the direction of, hey, what are you eating, and you should be mindful of that kind of thing. So I'm going to let you just kind of kick us off with that nutrition.
Yeah, well, first of all, Roxanne, thanks for having me on. Great to connect with you on video and all that. This is such an interesting time right now, and I feel like the narrative is all around vaccines and wash your hands and cover your mouth and look, and I've been doing all that. I've been playing this game. But I think, to be honest with you, and I don't want to irritate, maybe lose some of your followers, but I really think the smoke doesn't match the fire when it comes to the mortalities from this particular situation. So I don't want to go into the rabbit hole of that, but I've been kind of questioning the whole thing because where I live in Kirkland, Washington, the very first mortalities in the US, the very first cases were less than a mile from my house. And I have a pretty big network here locally. I have had a few clients that have been tested positive and got sick. Mm-hmm. They didn't even have to go to the hospital or ICU or anything. They had a fever for a few days. So, 43,000 healthcare practitioners have been laid off or furloughed in the last few weeks. And it's like, all we're hearing is hospitals are overrun. But so it's just, to me, it's crazy. And so, we're all talking about deaths. I mean, every day, CNN or MSNBC or Fox News, whatever, you name the major network, they're talking about today's going to be a 9/11 equivalent in terms of the mortalities. Today's going to be like Pearl Harbor. And it's like, okay, so everyone's focused on deaths. And then when you look at the COVID-19 deaths in proportion to other fatalities that kill a lot of people every year, heart disease kills 679,000 people every year. Diabetes kills 60,000 people. Car wrecks, suicides. So anyway, I think this situation is serious. It's very transmissible. It's very violent. A lot of people, the incubation period is on between 2 and 11 days. So you can be exposed and you don't get sick for up to 11 days, right? And so you can inadvertently harm other people. But that's serious. Let's think about that. But let's look at this in the context of other diseases that are killing people in droves: cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer, fatty liver disease. Okay, we still have soda machines in elementary schools, right? We still have McDonald's, the drive-thrus are still open right now. Gyms are closed, McDonald's is open. So I just feel like we're always, what is the best way? Delaying gratification, right? We always want that instant quick fix. Like, I'm going to wash my hands and cover my face, but I'm going to drink Mountain Dew and have French fries on my soda while I watch fear-based news. So I just wonder if we haven't really kind of focused in on the like, we're doing the social distancing thing, which is fine, but I sometimes question, the ulterior motives here. And I was just kind of thinking about this. I've lost, interestingly, so many followers since I've been covering this story, because what I found is people are so polarized right now because they have no outlets. People used to go to the gym. They used to go to kickboxing class, used to go to jujitsu. Now they're stuck at home. So the people are so reactive on social media, and I'm literally just like pointing out some things. I'm not a Democrat, Republican. I'm more of a libertarian. I'm just like saying how it is, and people just hear things the wrong way. But if we think about the cigarette industry, okay, when the smoking industry was lying about the mortalities and the health consequences linked with smoking, their revenues were around $600 million per year, right? So again, 600 million is a drop in the bucket for like the drug industry or the vaccine industry, which is $24 billion annually. So keep that in mind. The National Football League, right? Again, I played football in high school. I do like football, but I realized that I'm kind of torn between watching it and not, because these poor guys are literally getting head trauma, right? So the NFL continues to underplay and downplay the risk associated with chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE. They generate around $8 billion annually. Okay. The vaccine industry, and again, I'm not picking on vaccines. I've had vaccine. I got my daughter's son vaccines, not every single vaccine per schedule. They make around total all in about $24 billion, right? So let's just say they make $1 off every vaccine sold, and they sell $3 billion in vaccines due to this COVID-19. I mean, again, I'm not a conspiracy guy, but you can see how potentially there's multiple conflicts of interest with this entire thing. And I'm not saying that's why we've overestimated, the mortality and data. But again, last week we heard this disease is going to kill 1 million people. Well, maybe 200,000. Last Friday it was 100,000. Just last night, the IHME here in Seattle, Washington, at University of Washington, as we get more data from New York and Louisiana and Seattle and California, we can adjust the models and the numbers keep dropping. And it looks as though total fatalities are going to, kind of hit by August. They're saying as of yesterday, 60,000. So 60,000 sounds like a lot of people. Okay, but more than 60,000 people every year die of diabetes.
Right.
30,000 people die a year in their car, driving in their car, right? Yeah. So we want to prevent deaths, right? But so I just wonder if we really care about deaths and saving lives. 679,000 people die every year from heart disease. So let's talk about sleep. Let's talk about circadian rhythms. Let's talk about stress. Let's talk about junk food, sugar. I mean, So I wonder here what's going on. And sorry to go into that vaccine thing.
I love it.
I think we all, like, anytime I'm in a situation, because I've been in sales my entire life. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so I've been selling to people for a long time. I look at people's eyes, see their nonverbal cues and their reactions. Mm-hmm. And I like to see where people are coming from when I'm being sold. If I'm buying a car, I know that the car salesman gets a commission off what he sells me. So when he's trying to emphasize, hey, buy this car, okay, why? Like, tell me the backstory, right? So if you look at people that have a really strong vested interest in promoting vaccines, people like Bill Gates, they're saying social distance, don't go to church. It's going to be 24 months before you go to a concert again. I mean, you're like, why? What is on the back end of him or other related people in? So I think, again, I'm not passing judgment. I'm saying we should all start to think critically about this and wonder, what are people's motives? Why are they saying this? Because what if we all go out there and just circulate this thing around? And by the way, 80% of people that get infected with this novel human coronavirus get not much more than a cough and a little fever, right? So 80%, we focus so much on the deaths. Yeah. But if you look at their survivability, 80% of people just have a little bit more than a fever. 20% of people that are infected might need supplemental oxygen. Of those 20% that have a bad turn of events, 73% of those individuals have these diseases that we started this conversation with: hypertension, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and diet-related diseases. So again, I've been trying to hammer this point home that there could be a second wave of this. COVID-19, this human coronavirus, this is not going to be the last superbug in our lifetime, probably, that we're exposed to. Sure. So anyway, my whole thing is like, look, man, we got it. This is the time now to double down. And again, the New York Department of Health has been publishing the mortality data every single day, and I read it every night. And they list comorbidities. It's the diet, lifestyle, preventable comorbidities that are causing people majority of people, like, bad things happen to good people. Kobe Bryant, unfortunately, passed in a helicopter accident, right? So you hear the one-off mother of four got T-boned in an intersection. Like, terrible things happen to good people. So there are some otherwise healthy people that get really harmed by this, but the overwhelming majority of people that are in the ICU on ventilators have diseases that are preventable. So but there's been no conversation from the public about that. So it gets me fired up.
First of all, I love that you speak your mind, and I feel like I know where you're coming from. So for me, how I absorb what you said is, let's keep an open mind. Like, let's not just become so fixed on what we're being told, right? Like, critical thinking, right? Keep an open mind. And in addition to that, so don't let fear drive you. And above all, what are you doing? What can you be doing to empower yourself in the ways of your lifestyle? So, diet being huge. But beyond that, you have sleep, you have movement. What are you doing? Because again, like you said, this isn't the last time. Are you kidding me? I mean, we're for sure going to be facing things like this. So what are we going to do every time? Just sit in here and hide? And you're not. And I just, I really want to express this. That I don't feel that you're sitting here saying that, there isn't like it isn't severe in some ways, and that, people aren't suffering health wise. You're not saying anything like that. You're just simply saying, this is just how my brain, is grabbing it. It's like, hey guys, let's just not believe every single thing. Especially pay attention to the fact that the majority of what is being dished to us is very fear-based, right? I don't watch the news, Mike. I don't. The thing is in truth, and I swear I don't mean this just as a compliment to you, but it's like, I only have so much time and energy to absorb information. I'm putting on your podcast instead of watching the news. Am I ignorant? I don't think I'm ignorant. I just think that I have, and I'll kind of dip in and out of headlines and certain things, but I pay attention to the source, and I also pay attention to the amount of that stuff that I take in. Because at this point in life, I've really come to understand with media, I mean, they have their own fucking agenda. And I'm not anti-media, but I'm sorry, I just don't trust everything and maybe this is the leader mindset where it's like, nah, maybe some of this stuff is true and accurate. But I would say that most of it probably isn't. And then it comes down to my ability to, navigate through that. And just, in the case of like COVID-19, I am someone who, in my family, we're already kind of germphobes, I don't like to use that label, but meaning I don't like to shake hands. I'm more of a knuckle kind of girl. And, as a makeup artist, it's like, there's just certain things that, I don't want to sit here and like take in all your germs unless you're my person. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but that being said, I say that because, while that is the case and this whole situation is happening, I'm not going to the market and just touching everything and not wearing a mask. No, I am doing those things. And I think mostly, especially, it's not even because of me, but it's because, I have my little nieces and nephews that I still get to be around, and I don't know, So to kind of put a bow on what I'm saying that really brings it back to you is that, what you are so passionately sharing is what I believe and what I align with to be, you guys, don't buy into everything. Let's keep an open mind. Let's keep paying attention. Let's not be so driven by fear. And what are we doing in our everyday lifestyle that will support us to, be robustly healthy, right? So in the event that this shit, let's just say I got it or whatever, it's like, I have the means to crush it, basically. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. So
I was sipping my coffee here. This is my first coffee I've had. No, 100%, Roxanne. I think that's the situation. And, prior to this, like the stuff that you and I do, maybe do a cold plunge or do breath work or mindfulness, some conventionalists will say, that's just like biohacky weirdo stuff. There's no evidence to support that. What's interesting is like I do breath work every morning. Mm-hmm. So I feel like my reserve, my lung reserve, my ability to oxygenate my blood, and I've really trained my body to function under like low environments of oxygen by doing some, breath retention. And it was funny, this New York doctor was in it, this YouTube video got viewed like 7 million times. He was teaching breath work to his COVID-19 patients. Like, hey, here's what you do. You do a little hyperventilation, you kind of hold it, and then you do this paced box breathing. And it was like, if you or I would have said that 2 months ago, like, hey, here's what you should be doing for this potential coronavirus. Because it was a doctor in the heart of like an ICU in New York, everyone's like, yeah, man, breath work. Why didn't I think of that earlier?
That's
it's
true.
Like, these are things we've been doing. So anyway, it's going to take someone like a Fauci or, someone director of the CDC to say, well, guess what, friends? If we look at, if we look at actually the mortality data Bronx, Queens, Brooklyn compared to Staten Island and Manhattan, again, different socioeconomics, different access to, Whole Foods and all that, all over Manhattan. Go to the Bronx or Queens or Brooklyn. I mean, getting access to vegetables and fruit, not very likely. There's 7-Elevens and fast
it's
food
hard.
joints.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to start to wake up to the fact that, wow, majority of the people, if we really care about deaths, if we don't use the straw man argument to say, well, diabetes isn't transmissible. And I would actually make the argument that it is transmissible. If you look at people in families, if you look at families in Alabama or Mississippi compared to families in Manhattan Beach, California, there's a difference in familial obesity, familial diabetes. So it is transmissible, but the latency period is a lot longer, right? You don't catch diabetes, but if you're around all your friends that are type 2 diabetic and overweight, the chances of you starting to resemble their body composition and their metabolic issues is going to be high, because in social situations, you're going to eat the food they're eating, you're going to behave like them, and so on. So anyway, again, and we're practicing social distancing. I'm not out there, licking toilet seats or anything like that, not taking this seriously. So I just want to clarify that for people, because I think when you post things that go against what mainstream media is saying and question, then all of a sudden you're like this rebel and you're not following the social distancing thing. And it's like, that's, I really want to go to my friends' houses and jump in their sauna and go in their hot tub and hang and talk. But we haven't done that, because I have a lot of healthy friends and we're all playing the game right through the end of April. So yeah, it's really interesting. But to piggyback off what you were saying, I think there's a lot of low hanging fruit here that we could be grabbing. Mm-hmm. And, I'm seeing all these messages, and again, I got berated for this, but Chick-fil-A delivered 350 meals to a local hospital here. And I was like, guys, what's up with that on Instagram? And I just got hammered.
What about the Krispy Kreme? That
was everywhere.
What is
that?
I don't get it. I literally jaw dropped. I'm like,
I mean, whatever. Okay, fine. They're altruistic. Healthcare workers are busy. Okay, I get it. But there's better options. There's Whole Foods. There's all these things. And so, but I mean, this isn't pseudoscience, these things that we're talking about. And I just shared the other day a clinical study that actually looked at giving people a glucose tolerance test versus a placebo control. There was a stevia sweetened drink. Mm-hmm. So a glucose tolerance test is, as many people know, it's a 73 gram just bolus of sugar, basically. And then you look at someone's glucose response in the post-meal window after that. Well, this particular study wanted to see how does that bolus of sugar affect the immune system, particularly looking at lymphocytes and lymphopenia, which, by the way, I'll just spoiler alert, many people that are in the ICU compared to healthy control or compared to infected controls, individuals that have COVID-19 that are in the ICU, intubated on a ventilator, they have lymphopenia, which is super physiologically low levels of white blood cells. And basically this immunosenescence, or what some articles are talking about, is immune burnout, right? Mm-hmm. Well, interestingly, just having 73 grams of glucose, which may be a couple Krispy Kremes, it literally wipes out your white blood cell population, completely changes all these different subtypes of T helper cells, CD4 T helper cells, CD8 T helper cells, natural killer cells. So this is a clinical study, 37 subjects with a control group. This is data that most people should know about. That's why I shared it, and a lot of people push it around. Yeah. And it was if you're an intensivist in the ICU, you would know that hey, on your shift, when you could be exposed to this pathogen and you really want your neutrophils, your white blood cells, your T lymphocytes to be primed, you don't want to have a bolus of sugar from Krispy Kremes or some drink. So again, I think there's this major chasm between natural medicine mm-hmm. and conventional medicine, and everything that's natural is bogus, whack. It doesn't do anything. The only thing that works is surgery, ventilators, and vaccines. And what we're seeing here, even actually in China, they were doing some studies where they were injecting people with stem cells. Mm-hmm. They were using vitamin C, Chinese herbs to heal people. So it's these natural therapies actually do things as well. And I think it's a great opportunity for people to realize that they can double down on these natural mm-hmm. things that are really free. Breath work, doing a cold plunge. When you go in the Pacific Ocean right now, for example, which I know you do, or whatever, I mean, that really affects your immune system in a favorable manner. This is published science. Individuals out in Quebec, Canada have done a ton of research, one lab in particular, about all the immunological changes of doing a cold immersion, going in a sauna therapy. There was one study that looked at individuals that went in a sauna. They drew their blood before and after and saw all these increases in neutrophils, which are your first line immune, part of your innate immune system response. So if you were to get exposed to a coronavirus pathogen or some other lethal pathogen, you'd want your neutrophils to be high. So going in the sauna can be very helpful.
Yeah.
Even just hot yoga has been shown to favorably. So it's like there's so much here that we could be doing, and yet people are buying PPEs, all these personal protective equipment. I mean, people are driving down the road, texting and driving with gloves on. I mean, it's just like, again, I saw this guy the other day. Seriously, he had a mask on in his car and he had gloves. And he's texting and driving. I'm like,
no,
give me a break.
You know what's rad? So, so your backstory is actually, it was really great to take Tom Billy, your talk with him was, I've watched it a couple of times. It's awesome. I'm going to put it in the show notes actually. So it was really cool to learn about, your adolescent years and like how you kind of arrive. You're super smart and so knowledgeable. And obviously, you've done the educational part of to bring you where you are with your knowledge. But I think, so where I want to go right now is that anecdotally, the difference because you've lived this life, this contrast, right? When you're eating certain things, how it makes you feel, when you're moving certain ways, how it makes you feel versus not, when your sleep is more optimal than it's not. So you can not only speak to everything that you speak to from a very, science-based education background, but you've had a very contrasting experience in your life. Myself as well. I've had 3 knee surgeries. I was on the American diet and like pretty much like not athletic for a couple of years through that rehabilitation process. And a lot of shit I just went wrong, but it ends up being the path that turned me into a super geek and then, has brought me into this place where I am now with health and my lifestyle. But why I think this is important to say is because, when you say that, and I'm so with you on this, how natural medicine and, these things that we can do by way of environment, hormesis, the foods that we eat, all of this stuff can be frowned upon like, oh, it's not legit. You know what I mean? It's not legit. So it's like, well, actually, I can argue that. I'm 41. I'll be 42 next month, right? And I'm in this place where I'm like, yeah, I'm going to die. It's not like I'm trying to live forever. But I want to be kicking ass in as many years of my life that I can while I'm here. So what does that mean? That means that my lifestyle is geared towards optimizing cellular health, keeping cognition fucking robust, and just like keeping this inner being that is, that I'm living with in a very high state so I can continuously experience, peak performances in my life, right? And I know the difference of, when I used to eat fast food, which stopped in 1999 versus, here now, my diet now. I know the difference of when I used to be excessively into cardio because, I'm a mesomorph and I didn't want to be like, super buff or whatever that fucking is. And then I started lifting weights and I was like, oh, here you are, body, not just body, but like fucking mind. Right. And so, I'm with you that while it's so easy for people to frown upon this, the foods and the lifestyle and like, oh, it's not legit. I call bullshit on that, and there's science and evidence to prove it as well. Right. But
Totally.
Anecdotally, you in your life, me in my own life can sit here and say like, it's bullshit, man. And you only know when you go there, right? So like how many times have you heard, I myself have heard like, I was, eating this way and moving and I felt, but then it's like, well, yeah, you felt good because you were doing things that perpetuated this good feeling in you, and for a reason, you fell off, which is no judgment, but just to say that people do experience like tastes of this and for whatever reason, they don't stick to it. But I think just to pull us into this, Mike, before COVID-19 and before the quarantine, I always address my training and my lifestyle as a means to stay fully prepared, right? Not because I'm sitting here waiting for like the world to end, the apocalypse, but just like, uh, because I feel it's like I guess maybe a martial artist way. It's like when battle comes, I'm fucking ready. I'm ready here. I'm ready here. I'm ready here. So, you know, being in this state right now, I'm not in the top 1%. I got my shit together. But more important than that, I've got my shit together. I've got my shit together. I'm flexing and I'm pointing to my brain for people who don't see this. And that is because there is a lifestyle that is so consistent. Like it doesn't even take discipline. It's just like how I live, that has that's given me an edge in this scenario. And I know that is the same with you and your family, and I think that that's, we share this passion of like, hey guys, you might want to like try a little bit of this over here, like do it your way, whatever, but like telling you, you're going to feel really fucking good. And, in this state that we're in right now, where we don't know what's going on, we don't know what's real, and people are dying and there's all kinds of issues, like you may be less afraid, you will be stronger with your immunity. And, it's just, yeah, I can go on.
No, it's huge. I have a book on my bookshelf. It's called Timeless Healing by Herbert Benson. And he talks about this relaxation response and just having a positive mental attitude. So, getting back to, and I'll dovetail that into some of the stories that you were talking about to give people kind of an idea, again, to validify, because I feel like, my whole life I've been trying to validify the things that I'm saying and try and validate them. So that's why I love science so much, because it would help me to explain to other people, convince my clients through when I used to do personal training that this stuff works. But having a positive mindset, right? So it's like, all your, training, whether it's martial arts, physical fitness, running, CrossFit, you name it, right? I mean, I lift weights too because of the mental grit. So it's like, if I were to get sick and I'm in the ICU and I got a tube down my throat, I'm going to fight through this because I've been through pain before, through just lifting weights. Like and so I think the mental attitude, we can become more resilient. I mean, again, we focus so much now on the microbe, COVID-19, SARS, human coronavirus, all this. What about the terrain? I mean, there's two sides of this, right? It takes two to tango, even with a virus. So it's like, we focus so much on this microbe. And I'm not saying it's not lethal or infectious or transmissible. It jacks up your lungs. I'm not saying that it doesn't do all that sort of stuff, but your body has an immune system. Like your body's immune system our immune system is so elaborate. We're exposed to so much literally crap on our hands. Like if I had a mentor, an MD friend of mine, and his name is Robert Roundtree, and he was like, dude, if poop was fluorescent, your entire keyboard, your phone, it would be everywhere. There's shit everywhere, literally, because, and look, I used to travel sometimes 70, 90 flights a year as a sales rep. And so that's how I started this podcast, because I was always in these different areas. So I've been in a lot of public restrooms and airports, and I don't want to spoil anyone's lunch here, but most men, they don't wash their hands. They take a crap, go in the urinal, and they leave. So poop and stuff, bugs are everywhere. Anyway.
No, wait, I have to say something really quickly. That's why we don't shake hands in my family, because my dad taught us that at a young age. He's like, let me show you how men wash their hands in the bathroom.
They don't.
Sorry. Exactly.
Gross.
Continue.
It's gross.
Yeah.
So then they touch the thing of, what am I on the airplane? I haven't traveled forever, so I don't even know what the thing is. The tray, right? Your tray table. So anyway, there's germs everywhere, right? And thankfully our immune system can mount a response. And so I just think we got to keep that in mind. And so, I mean, just very quick backstory. I mean, the reason why I'm so passionate about this stuff is because I've changed my brain in my life through everything that we're talking about here. I mean, if you would have saw me when I was 10 years old, you would have thought this kid's never going to be amounting to anything. My older stepbrother introduced me to drugs and alcohol when I was 9 years old. I was going down a very bad path, hanging out with a lot of bad people in Northern California, a little small town called Santa Rosa. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, I got arrested twice before the age of 15. Like I was a total wreck. I mean, and so no one would ever know that. Like, this is like, in fact, when I say this stuff, like, I think people think that I'm lying. Oh, he's making it up. And which is, they can, whatever. But I've shared a few pictures, because I don't have a lot of pictures from that era where I have long hair and I look like I just smoked a blunt, And so, so it's like, anyway, it's just kind of interesting, but it's like, no, really, that's how plastic that's how malleable our bodies are. Yeah. So the 350-pound overweight person that feels like, man, I'm always going to be this 350-pound broke, overweight person with asthma and no energy. It's like, no, actually, if you give your body the right signals, it might take a little bit of time if you've been that way for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
But you can look, if I can change my brain
Mm-hmm.
and now, like, free flow with doctors on stage about scientific articles that literally I probably shouldn't even know about, that like you can change your body too, man. I mean, everyone can do this. And so I just like to leave people with hope and it's not like a braggadocious thing. It's like, look, but it starts with kind of where we started here with the mindset, with belief. And we just have to have the belief that we're able to do this. I mean, Elon Musk is a human, just like you and I. Like Bill Gates is a human. Joe Rogan is a human being just like us. Like, he has 2 eyes, he has a nose, he has lips. Like, he's a human. So we really can do a lot more than we think we can. And that's where this lifestyle stuff comes in, because it helps you believe in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
When you go do a sprint on the beach, like you do more, today than you could do last week, right?
Totally.
When you do a cold plunge, 3 months before that, you probably couldn't even tippy toe in, and now you're able to hang out in there for 3 minutes. So that's where I think, and again, it's not being arrogant. It's not saying like, oh, I can crush coronavirus, man. It's like, no, you're just going to increase the probability of being more successful no matter what happens to you, because again, bad things happen to good people and we want to be resilient. So
I love that. And it's so funny that or I don't know if funny is the real word that I want to use, but it's just, fuck, man. The fact that you have to keep saying, like, it's not that I don't take this serious. It's not that coronavirus. It's not like I have all the answers to you weren't saying in that word, but it's essentially saying, like, I'm not saying that I have the solution and I'm immune to it. It's just saying that, while this may be true, and this is happening, don't disempower yourself. Don't disempower yourself. I'm all about, it's personal empowerment. That's my coaching, like, focus, right? And to me, when I think about, like, being an empowered woman, it's not just like, I am woman, hear me roar. Actually, you never fucking hear me say that. My empowerment comes from who I identify myself with, right? So I'm this warrior, I'm this champion, I am this woman who walks her talk, right? So I have these certain standards for myself. So how does a champion move through challenge and a warrior move through challenge? How does this, woman who really loves and respects herself, how does she fuel her body? What does she do when, like, how does she move throughout the day? What are the relationship? What are her boundaries? All this stuff. So when you think, like, one of the greatest things I've heard you say is, like, our minds and our body, we're so malleable, right? That word's hard for me. So when you think, like, if somebody is just identifying themselves with, I have this issue and this is who I am, obesity, whether it's an actual, like, disease or illness or whatever, you're holding yourself in this prison, and then you're kind of creating, internal environment and standards and things that are just going to keep you there, right? Versus thinking about this, maybe another identity that you want to embody. And with that identity comes certain standards. And then those standards, really initiate actions and activity, right? And now you are, in the case of, like, me just saying this empowered woman, my life is, I live a very empowered life because I'm everything that I do in my life, by way of diet, by way of my relationships, by way of just how I show up, is to continuously fortify this sense of empowerment, right? Does that, I don't know if that made sense, but it's really what it is for me. And I think that everything that you, and all of your podcasts and the information that you share, I mean, I just want you to know, and I want to say it for it to live in this conversation, how I receive it so clearly. Like, there's no fucking issue, is you are just truly trying to empower the people that are taking you in to live their most, feel great, kick ass life, and yeah.
That's
Wonderful.
awesome. No, well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
But I'm with you 100%. I mean, I think, gosh, I mean, there's a lot of different personal development books that talk about this, but let's say you want to make $2 million this year or whatever, you want to 10x your income, right? And you need to, what a lot of people that I know that make way more money than I do, they're way more successful, have bigger businesses and investments and everything like that. It's like, you need to behave as though you already have the money. So it's exactly kind of what you're talking about. It's like you're behaving as and acting how that person or how your mentor would act. And So I used to be really, really shy, like super, I still am kind of a reserved person, but
Mhm.
way, way more shy. In fact, one of the first, when I was in college, I had to give this presentation and I couldn't even do it. Like it was in this history class, political science or something like that. And I like just froze, right? It was like I was, and now like, I'm not saying I'm the best speaker,
No,
but
but
I
you're a
get a
great
little nervous,
speaker.
but I can get up in front of 1,000 people, no problem. Like I'll be like, okay, I gotta do a little breath work before, but I can do it, and people won't know that I'm nervous, right? So, how did I do that? Like, was I born, with a microphone in my hand? No, it wasn't. I have this mentor of mine who his name is Ryan. He's like he's amazing with people in front of a crowd,
Mhm.
excellent leader. So I would just think about like if I'm in a situation where I'm nervous, where I'm uncomfortable doing a presentation from a small group or trying to pitch something to someone, I would just think about like do 10 minutes of visualization. Like, okay. And I would walk through the potential things that would happen during the next meeting or the presentation. Okay. Okay. How am I going to like just close my eyes, sit in the car? How is this going to play out? What are some roadblocks? And how would Ryan do this? Like,
Yeah.
how would he act in this situation? And so I just I just kind of like put on my Ryan jacket and I would like emulate his behavior. And it's very much exactly what you're talking about. Like, how does a warrior go about this?
Yeah.
So, just to bring this home, like super practical for people, if they're sitting trying to improve their life and they're like,
Mhm.
damn, today sucked. It sucked like just yesterday. Well, why did it suck? Were you lying in bed for an hour on your iPhone? Like, Bill Gates probably doesn't scroll Instagram for an hour when he wakes up in his bed, right? Or,
Mhm.
you know,
Right.
so you got to think
Right.
about these things. Beyonce probably doesn't do that. Like, so again, just like what would someone who I aspire to be like, or
Mhm.
as strong as, or as, powerful, what behave like them? What are some things that they do? So it's those repetitive habits that we continually do that shape us into the people that we become. And if those repetitive habits are watching CNN,
Mhm.
thinking you're a victim, thinking you're going to die, worrying and being fearful,
Yeah.
it, you know, being fearful. I remember I was, as a consultant, started to make pretty good money with this one company. And I was always worried that they were going to cut my territory and fire me. Right. So I was, I would literally like my sleep was terrible. I would get up at 4 a.m, nervous. I would have all these nightmares and bad dreams. And it was like, and I started to manifest. And eventually, once I hit like certain levels, I got fired. Right.
Yeah.
So I basically manifested this, and maybe not directly through the ethers and stuff like that,
Right.
but I started to behave in a very fearful based reactionary way. So
Mhm.
I was just too much for people to handle
Yeah.
because I was worried in the beginning, where if I would have just been grateful, like, man, I'm making this much money. I should be grateful. Life is good. I give some money to charity, do something, take my family on a vacation. But no, I was just like, kept working, working, working. I have this fear.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the situation that a lot of people are in. They're like, they've been furloughed from their job.
Mhm.
They don't know what's going on. They're fearful. So they're watching the news and they're just digging themselves into a deeper and deeper fear based hole that they may not be able to get out of. And they're really not fun to be around. I mean, if you talk to
No.
someone who's been watching the news incessantly, all they can tell, hey, well, you know what you should do? You got to put your toilet seat down because when you flush your toilet, germs come out. It's like, yo, I live with my family. I mean, if germs come out my toilet seat, they've already gotten it anyway. I mean, so it's like, seriously, I get text messages from friends and family like the latest coronavirus disinfectant solution. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, that's the best you can come up with right now. So,
It's so true though.
I just see a lot of like the victim stuff, and I'm like, man, come on, stop right now. Right now is a chance for you to discover your strength, to fortify your strength, discover even things that you're grateful for and fortify that. Like there's just so much opportunity to make gains in this situation, which again, it's not saying that the negative shit isn't there. It's just a matter of like, where are you channeling your attention? So if we think about diet as an example, it's a great one. So how many times have you and I heard, I don't have time, I wish I could have this, right? Okay, well, now you have time. Granted, it's harder. The grocery store things are maybe less available or whatever, but you actually have more time to learn about, certain things in nutrition that could be beneficial to you. You have more time to prepare, to cook, like cook, right? It's all I do. But people who don't have time, they now have time. So there's always, in the face of challenge, there's always opportunities to make gains. And it's really, it just comes down to, do you want to be a victim of circumstance, or do you want to rise in the face of adversity, which, yeah, I don't know. I get super passionate about this because when I see stuff like that, these messages that are like trying to kind of pet like baby people, where I'm like, you're not fucking helping them right now. This is an opportunity for them to get stronger in their health, for them to get stronger in their mind, for them to get, stronger in their relationships with self and with, the people that matter the most with them, et cetera, et cetera. Don't fucking promote that shit. Let's promote everyone's, inner champion, inner warrior, and your ability, your capabilities. Yes, it takes effort. Yes, it takes discipline and focus, but those are skills that you want to have anyways. And those are skills that are going to transfer in every other aspect of your life. My diet, discipline, fasting. You've put this out before. I love it so much. I do time restricted feeding. So like my feeding window is typically, 6 hours in the day. And what I love about it so much is, yes, autophagy, all the things that, science, like all that stuff, biology. But I also really love that there is a discipline. So right now, like, while everyone's like, oh my God, I'm overeating and I'm stressing, and I get it, it leads to that. I don't have that issue at all because my food, and not like I'm in some prison, like I really want to go to the fridge, but I'm not. It's just that I'm so trained to understand what real hunger is, B, to fuel myself in a way where I'm not really hungry all the time. Like I'm hungry when I'm hungry, and I know the real signals that tell me, okay, it's time to put some, nutrients in versus not. And so, yeah, I think that's a long rant, but I think it's because when I see these kind of posts where I feel like you're just disempowering people in an opportunity in a time where people can really empower themselves, it triggers me.
No, it does. And there's something to be said about being productive too, and that productivity could be, maybe you're unemployed, you're reading, you're exercising, you're fasting, like our feeling of sense of well-being and like, did I live? Did I love? Did I matter? Brendan Burchard talks a lot about this, but
Yeah.
Like, did you even matter today? If you're more productive, you're more likely to feel like, hey, I matter today. Like I have purpose. I have meaning for being here, not just a lump on a log eating Krispy Kremes on my couch watching CNN. Yeah. That's the fastest way to feel disempowered and feel like to feel lost and to feel like there's really no purpose to your life. So yeah, my football coach said this in football, and it's really timely and apropos in the context of football, but in the game of football, for example, he would always say, like, if you're either moving forwards or you're moving backwards, right? So if you're on a football field, you're standing there, you're going to get plowed by someone or hit or pushed over, right? In life, you can never just kind of like take time off. Yeah, I mean, I think, look, there's something to be said about going on vacation. There's something to be said about mindfulness, right? But generally, if you just say, look, I'm just going to take the month off work and watch CNN and eat Krispy Kremes, you're really going backwards in life. You're not like you're not. So you're either moving forwards or backwards. And I think a lot of people should be thinking about that. And you can still be relaxed and be mindful. You can do meditation. You could do yoga. You could read. You could call your mother. You could learn how to knit.
Go on a walk, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's bringing down the life load and the stress load, but you're not going backwards, right? You're still moving forward. So I think it's beautiful. People can use this extra time that we have. They're not in traffic. They don't have deadlines. Presumably, like for me, like my daughter and I were just gardening earlier before this call. We've been raising chickens. I've always wanted to hatch chickens. I haven't been successful with that because hatching is, you have to turn the eggs every couple hours. So it's like, I'm home. I'm not traveling. I can raise chickens just to see,
it's rad.
Raise them, but hatching them, like I've never done that. And I'm like, I always screw it up. And it's weird, Roxanne, because when you screw it up, the eggs start to smell because there's little babies in there that die. So you got to get the humidity and temperature right.
Yeah.
I've always been like traveling for a podcast or traveling for this. And so it's like now, like every day I'm turning them, and
that's so cool. No, I love it. And it was so cute. You had your daughter on an IG live the other day, and we were talking about French fries, and she was so cute. I love, when I peek into your life through social media and, what you share, it's a beautiful life. Your wife, by the way, is badass. Like, I need to get her on the podcast. I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, you're fucking sick. Your physique, like, just, she's so strong, and I love strong women. And, your relationship together, how you parent, your diet and how you show, like, you use all the animal. And there's so many components to the life that I see you living that in my mind really equates to the word wealth. Like, it's a wealthy life. And I'm not saying it's perfect. And obviously I don't know all the ins and outs, but it's wholesome, it's rich, it's purposeful, it's beautiful. And again, I think that even just, it's like, in everything that you share and the messages that you really, passionately put forward, I think they're all driven from this intention of like, hey, people, you guys all have the ability really to live a wealthy life, but you have to be willing, obviously, to do the work to start investing in your health and these habits. I mean, listen, right now is a beautiful period. It's a beautiful time for people to start actually developing habits. Habits take time, right? Well, you got fucking time right now, right? So it's like, you want to start getting more walks in through your day. Now you have the chance to do it. You want to start, learning how to cook, better food. You now have the chance, build a habit. I keep saying that. So, but I think that those people that, are all like, oh, I'm busy, so I can't. It's like this time period where you just kind of have to sit with yourself more, your loved ones, and you're like, ooh, this is hard. But I'm saying, like, rather than now that you have this time to not be so busy the way that you were, you investing in habits and, even just like getting back to sleep, which is something I want to talk about with you. You can start these things that are going to have a long-standing positive ripple effect outside of the COVID-19 quarantine, because we're not going to be here forever. So, in my mind, I'm like, who are you going to be after this? Because this is not going to stay the same. So you think you're just going to go back to being that person? I never want to go back to anything. I always want to be moving forward. Right. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I mean, it's, if you create all these bad habits right now, like what all of a sudden you're going to like get, maybe you're sleeping in, maybe you're having a bunch of wine at night. I mean, I don't know, eating cupcakes. I mean, all of a sudden when this is over, you're just going to like stop that cold turkey and then be back to your normal self. So yeah, I mean, now is a good time to, like you said, you have home cooked meals and all that. So I think it's an excellent opportunity for people to hone in on that. And, sleep has a lot to do with this whole thing, and especially the immune system and circadian biology. And, sleep is so important. And, when I used to travel a lot, as a sales rep, my sleep, because I would go to Chicago, I'd go to Toronto, I'd go to New York all the time. And I live in Seattle. And so that was really tough on the circadian rhythm. So I knew, I could see firsthand, like every time I'd come back from a trip, and people would say, my wife would say, "Oh, you're vain. That's not really true." But I could see more and more gray hair. And I'm like, "Deanna, look." I'm like, she's like, no, you're being vain. I'm like, "Look, I'm just pointing it out." She's like, "Oh, you should be grateful you don't have that much." I'm like, "I know, but I'm just saying, isn't it kind of crazy? Like when you screw up your circadian rhythm, like it's pro-aging." And so I think a lot of people, I'm not a fan of Botox and stuff like that. I know people do it, but you can't get Botox right now. She's like, "Oh, what could you be doing? You could be doing Juve therapy. You could be getting sleep. You could be doing time-restricted feeding and all these things that affect your skin in a favorable manner."
I have a smart ass smile on my face because inside I'm so with you. I'm like, we live in a time where you see social media, you have all the, it's just crazy. It's crazy, crazy. And I'm not here to judge anybody's decisions of what they need to do. I mean, I'm a celebrity makeup, like I face is part of my livelihood. Right. But I really, really love this idea of like, how long can you push this aging process out? Listen, I've got some smile lines or whatever, but I actually don't really have wrinkles, which is, I'm not trying to say like, oh, I'm this most beautiful face of, non-aging. What I am saying is that my lifestyle, for sure, like, let me put it to you another way. It's kind of funny. If I am to disturb my circadian rhythm, which is so fucking on point, like sunsets, Roxy starts setting too, and I love that, right? Because I wake up, I don't wake up by an alarm. And when I wake up, I'm like up and ready to go, right? So I always say, if I am to disturb my circadian rhythm by way of like having to go to an event or go out and disturb my sleep, it better be worth the wrinkle it may be putting on my face.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I ain't even going there.
Yeah. Totally. Right.
Sorry. Yeah.
So true. 100%.
Yeah.
That's how, I would never guess you're 41. So whatever you're doing, it's really working. Congrats on that.
Thank you. Well, I think it's a lot of the similar things by way of lifestyle. One thing, because I know you have to get back to your life. And I would love to do another round with you because honestly, like I said, when we first jumped on, there's so much to you, Mike, that is like, from nutrition and, movement, metabolism, sleep, you have so much knowledge. And I would love to just be able to basically tap into your mind more for this show and, at another time. But I think with this conversation, with COVID-19 and, the quarantine, I really just wanted to freestyle around things that are heavily on your mind, things that, you're feeling really passionate about. Cause I know that everything that we just discussed, it's not just beneficial for people to absorb right now during the COVID-19 quarantine and all this, but it really does go the distance even afterwards, One thing I think, that is important around diet that I just want to kind of capture really quick in this conversation. Sure. When we think about low inflammation diet, so obviously people eat meat, people don't eat meat. There's all kinds of different diets, right? In my mind, I kind of think maybe the most important thing diet-wise right now is for people to just keep inflammation down, right? Would you agree with that? And maybe can you talk about that just a little bit?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, again, going back to the kind of characteristics of individuals that are infected with this disease, their levels of inflammation are much higher. So their baseline, I'm like, I've been drinking water here. I was having coffee. So people watching the video, like imagine your inflammatory tolerance as a cup, right? If your cup is 3/4 full and then you're exposed to a pathogen, right, that necessitates the release of more inflammatory signals, your body can only tolerate so much. And what is causing mortality in these individuals is an over responsive immune system. So it's the immune system is creating this so-called cytokine storm, which is just literally too much. So your immune system is like, okay, well, we've raised inflammation so much, we're just going to throw the kitchen sink and see what happens. But there's enough friendly fire. The analogy that I've been using is like if you had a mosquito and you were camping, or a mosquito on your granite countertop, and you took a sledgehammer to kill the mosquito, you'd kill the mosquito, but your countertop would be totally jacked. And so that's kind of what your immune system is doing. And so if we think about, if we can bring our burden down, we have so much more resilience and so much more tolerance. And there's this whole notion of immune tolerance. And so this is whether we're talking about autoimmunity, food sensitivities, allergies, asthma, all these conditions are characterized by lack of tolerance. We've all had like a strict teacher, a strict parent, someone where we knew if we just pushed it a little bit as a kid, like they're going to blow up, right? And so the people that have chronic inflammation and are suffering, really severely from this disease and autoimmunity, allergies, asthma, you name it, their immune tolerance, their buffer capacity isn't there. So you hit the nail on the head. And one of the ways that we can just reduce that immune system burden and improve our tolerance is just by compressing our feeding window. So I know it's hard for some people to like do sweeping diet changes, whether they're for religious purposes or like, hey, kids are in the home, we got to have pasta. It's like, okay, whatever. Like, I don't care. I care what people eat, but I'd much more rather them compress their feeding window, if nothing else. So you have a 6-hour window, Roxy. I think that's amazing. If people are not physically active, if people are not trying to get pregnant, a lot of people can do pretty well with one meal a day. Now, if you're a 20-something female athlete, please don't do one meal a day. Please don't fast for 20 hours every single day. Fasting needs to be kind of contextualized into our age as well. The older that we get, into our late 40s and 50s, the more important fasting becomes because we're no longer in this growth period. There's consequences to growth as we get older, meaning cancers, right? And other neoplastic conditions. So fasting is really kind of it needs to be contextualized. I get sometimes direct messages from 18-year-old hockey players in Canada, one just the other day. Hey man, I'm doing just one meal a day. What do you think? I'm like, dude, you're 18. Like I looked at his Instagram. He's like a semi-pro hockey player. I'm like, why would you be doing one meal a day? Like it doesn't, unless you're overweight and you're not going to make the team because you're getting slow. Okay. That makes sense. But if you're trying to, gain weight so that you can compete with pros, look, man, you should at least be having 2 meals a day and open up the window. So anyway, fasting needs and meal timing needs to be contextualized. But what to get back to where you were going with the inflammatory, conversation,
Mm-hmm.
if you're having a hard time changing what you eat
Mm-hmm.
because your husband, your wife, your kids, or whatever, okay, just compress your feeding window, and that there's for example, my stepfather, he's used to be a firefighter, now he's a contractor. He's retired, but he's like super busy. He's on his feet all day building stuff, doing all this stuff. He doesn't eat the best diet. He'll have bread and soda sometimes and
Mm-hmm.
chips, but he's still super shredded because he eats basically 1 meal a day.
Mm-hmm.
And he's moving all the time, right? And so it's like you have a lot more buffer capacity in terms of the diet choices you make. And I'm not saying go have a whole box of Krispy Kremes, but if you do want to have a little bit more flexibility in your diet and not be so regimented, and you like rice or you like sweet potatoes, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, just make your window smaller, increase your exercise. So there's all these knobs we can tinker and test with.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people think they need to be super strict on fasting, super strict on the diet, super strict on all this. It's like, you can dial one really down, and then you can have more kind of practice the 80-20 principle in some of the other diets.
I love that. Thank you. That was great. No, that was a huge gem to put in this conversation, I think, especially for right now, because it can be so overwhelming. It's like, okay, I'm going to eat healthy. How do I do it? And if you live with people, family members, that's not always easy. So thank you. Thank you for saying that. So a couple of things before I release you. If you had a magic wand and you could magically give the masses a lifestyle habit, and that could be anything, that would positively benefit them, what would that be?
Oh man, this is great. I'm pretty biased when it comes to circadian rhythms and food around that. So I would say, look, eat when the sun's out and don't eat when it's not. Just very simple, because a lot of people, they're ordering pizza at 2 a.m, right? They're hitting up Super Burger or whatever Sonic. I don't know these burger joints. After they go to the bars, and they wonder like, damn, I gained all this weight. Well, I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? You're eating outside of your body's circadian rhythm. And I'll just give people like a little context. And I learned this from having animals, whether it's, I had pigs for a while. They're in our freezer now, which is another story, but chickens, turkeys, we've had birds. Like once the sun starts to set, they are like hiding and hibernating. They don't like, you can put food right in their face. They're like, get that shit out of here, man. Like I am hunkering down. And, anyone that's been out camping in the woods and you hear wolves or you hear coyotes, like when it's dark out, you want to like be cuddled up near a fire and go to bed, right? You're not thinking about, watching Netflix and ordering pizza because you're like, what the hell is out there that's going to hurt me, right? So I think we're so insulated in our protective homes and condos, and we're so distanced from nature. And the idea that there could be natural predators out there, whether it's other humans, other tribes, or other animals, that we're doing things that are outside of our biological rhythm that is having unintended consequences in terms of obesity and heart disease. So I think, again, not changing what people are eating, just changing when they're eating and when they're sleeping, I think would really go a long way, because I do see certain people in different countries that probably don't eat the best. You go to, other parts of the world, but you know what? They're going to bed early. They're not, they're eating early. And they seem to be pretty resilient.
And moving more too. I think moving
Yeah.
more is a lot, it plays a big role in it as well. Yeah. That's amazing.
100%.
Thank you for that. Is there anything that you want to live in this conversation, or maybe people don't ask you about, that you want to talk about that you just haven't been able to express yet?
You know what? I just love for people to have a beginner's mind. I feel like on social media, it's so great that we can all have a voice now. But the downside is we get really, we need to be more mindful of our confirmation biases. And so oftentimes when we're writing something on social media, we're trying to prove what we know, or we're just trying to seek out more information to confirm what we think to be true. And so there's these people just need to be aware that like, it's okay to disagree with someone, and to think about why when someone says something, it pisses you off. Like, why does it piss me off that this person is talking about this? What is it? Is it like, why does it go against my biases? And could I be missing some piece of information that person knows that I don't know? And so therefore there could be some truth to what they're saying. So I really, and again, I'm as biased as anyone, right? But I've tried to become more aware of my biases and try to learn from other people. I disagree often with like the calorie counters on Instagram, the classical fitness people, because they say fasting is garbage. And I see it clinically with people I work with and doctors I know, and it works amazing. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I try to understand like, okay, why do they say it's garbage, and read some of their literature and see and try to make sense of all this. So I think it's important to not get too siloed in a box of just supporting what you think or know to be true, and to learn from different people. So there's a great book by the Heath brothers, Decisive, that talks all about that, how to make good decisions, better decisions in your life, and how to think through that. And I've learned a lot about how to be more open-minded about things from that.
Ooh, I love that. Thank you for that book
Yeah.
reference too. One of the things for me that I often say is like, when I'm done, I want to be realized as a woman who made really fucking great decisions in her life. It's really important. So, a quick little fun thing to just put in that, because of that, years and years ago, like when I really started getting dialed into my diet and all that, I remember thinking, and I didn't have any science to this, but it later comes out that there's an actual, like, this is proven in science, where I started to think, okay, well, if you want to make really great decisions in your life, where do you really make your decisions from, right? This is literally my thought process. And I'm like, well, emotionally, like usually decisions are based around emotions, right? So like even if people are disagreeing with you, it's like they're quickly triggered and then they're firing back, I'm unfollowing you or whatever, right? It's like emotional. So I started thinking, well, what really affects our emotions? Like what is like kind of like the MVP to our emotions, right? And I for some reason, it just, my mind, I was and then I started thinking nervous system, and that starts going, well, your food, your diet, right? And that's where it was like, okay, so hold on, reverse engineer. You want to make better decisions in life. So you want to be more clear, you want to be more effective, you want to be, so what are you fueling yourself to promote that process, right? And oftentimes I frame my food as like, this is good mood food. So literally, I just wanted to throw that in because it was so perfect with where you just left us. Making or making wise decisions and being more open-minded and not being so quick to just react and rather be more critical of a like open-minded student perspective, right? There's ways to fuel that as well. And I'm putting it back to food because in my life, I know that has certainly been the case, that when I started shifting diet, and so my diet is very pure and very wholesome, the pathways have opened up and allowed me to also to be more intuitive, to be more calm, to be more all the things basically. So yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I used to go to Chicago a lot, and you look on the south side of Chicago where a lot of homicides happen, and there's no Whole Foods, right? It's fast food, it's McDonald's, and the connection between, consuming those highly processed, high glycemic foods and how they trigger various, fight or flight responses in the brain and all that,
Yeah.
is much higher. So there's ample evidence in David Perlmutter's book. He'd be a good one to hop on this podcast. He has a new book called Brainwash. He talks all about that, how processed fast food, highly glycemic, all that, how it affects the excitatory, neurotransmitters in the brain, and affects the amygdala and the hippocampus and all these brain regions that are involved in the fight or flight response. And it just creates more and more and all that. And I remember, when I was like at my worst of getting in fights, stealing stuff, all that, like I was living off Taco Bell and Jack in the Box, and I was so triggered and all that. So it's like now I'm very calm, and
Yeah.
occasionally if someone flips me off and slams on the brakes, I'll like I might yell, right? But
Yeah.
that's like the worst that will, the most, irritated that I will get. But prior, like when I was, eating all that food, like I was triggered by damn near anything. Like, what are you looking at? I was one of those type of guys, right? So, and it's just new diet, new inputs. So I'm making better decisions. So like you said, it's like, it's just the pathways are cleaner. So you're not as reactive. And so I don't know. I think there's a lot to it. And now, thankfully, again, we have the validation through fMRI studies, and where people are eating junk food and they looked at their brain fear-based centers and they're lighting up. So great.
Yeah, Mike, that's awesome. You're the man. Thank you.
Thank you.
So much.
Yeah.
I so appreciate your time. You have no idea. Everything will be in the show notes, but if you want to let our listeners know how to stay, up to date with you, you've got an incredible podcast. I love your social media. Let it out.
Yeah, sure. Just it's High Intensity Health in iTunes and then on YouTube. And then I'm most active on Instagram as well, metabolic_Mike or Mike Mutzel, and then on Facebook too. So yeah, if y'all like the show, please share it as an Instagram story. Be sure to tag the both of us. I'd be honored, and appreciate you having me on and hang in there. When are you going to be able to like go to the beach without getting arrested, Roxy?
I know, right? I was looking at it yesterday, and when I was running, I was like, I miss you. I don't know, I mean, I hope that at the end of April, they open that up because, I love my beach runs or even my beach walks, just that negative charge from the earth and I mean, I literally live across the street from the beach, so it's not that far from me, which I think is very helpful right now. But yeah, hopefully, I really do hope soon because while we have to flatten the curve and all that stuff, there's a difference of stopping and moving cautiously, but still moving forward. And, that can trickle down to the individual's life. Like be paralyzed from fear, stop, don't do anything. No. Or proceed with caution, but you're still proceeding. You still need to move forward. Maybe that's the perfect way to end this.
Yeah, no, totally.
Right.
Where are you in like Manhattan Beach or Venice or where are you at?
Have you ever been here?
It's been a little while. Yeah. Let's see what else. Manhattan Beach and then Redondo.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to a few restaurants down there. Some buddies yeah, I don't know that area very well. Normally when I go to LA, I'll be in the Santa Monica, Venice type area. So I know that.
Yeah.
Pretty well. I don't know kind of the South end.
The South Bay is beautiful. Obviously I'm biased because I live here, but it doesn't have this sort of Hollywoodish feeling that I think Santa Monica, no disrespect, I got mad friends that live in Santa Monica and it's beautiful. But for me, I really do, Hawaii has been home for me too. And I feel like in the South Bay, I have more of that kind of laid Hawaiian kind of vibe. But meanwhile, I'm close to the airport, ocean, it's all close by. So it's like this perfect gem of a place to live in my specific city. It's a real community, and I really love that because I lived in New York for so many years, and just being able to walk in your neighborhood and that restaurant person, that really does add to this overall well-being in life that you get to feel. So it's lovely when this is over and we get to travel again, which who knows when that is. I'll look forward to doing a podcast in real life with you here in my studio in Manhattan Beach.
Cool.
All right,
Sounds
you guys.
Good.
I'm going to wrap us out, but Mike, again, thank you. And you guys definitely subscribe to his podcast, do all the things, social media, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.